Alright, today's video is about solving multi-step inequalities. And multi-step inequalities are solved the same way as multi-step equations. The only difference is that you have to flip the inequality symbol when you multiply or divide by a negative. And that's the same rule that we have for solving 1- and 2-step inequalities. There's 5 steps that we're going to take to solve these. I want you to go ahead, pause the video, copy down these 5 steps, and resume it when you're ready, and I'll explain each step. So the first thing we need to do is simplify. Remember, simplifying includes distributing and combining your like terms. When you simplify, make sure you simplify both sides of the inequality before you go on. The next step is we want to move the variables to one side. So move your x to one side, or move your n to one side. In general, it's better in inequalities if you move it to the left side. The reason for that is that if you try to graph something like x is greater than 5, it's a little bit easier to do that 5 is greater than x. So it's easier for us to do it this way. So we're going to try to move it to the left side. The next thing you want to do is solve. Remember, when you solve, you're undoing operations. When you are at this step, I want you to think about, do I need to flip? Ask yourself that question. Do I need to flip the sign? Our fourth step is going to be to graph, and then our last step is going to be check our solution, and we'll talk about how to do that. So let's go ahead and do an example. Let's take example number 1. We have negative 4x plus 4x, or negative 4 plus 4x minus 7x is less than 11. So the first thing we want to do is look on the left and say, all right, do I have any distributing? No. Do I have any terms I can combine? Yes. I notice I have a 4x, and I also have a negative 7. So I'm going to combine those two like terms. I'm going to bring down my negative 4. 4 plus 7x is negative 3x is less than 11. Now I'm going to look, is this side simplified? Any distributing or combining? Nope. Is this side simplified? Yes, there's no distributing or combining. So now I'm ready to solve. This is solving any other equation. You want to use reverse GEMDA. So start with addition and subtraction. Do you see any addition or subtraction that you can undo? Yes, I can undo this negative 4 minus. So I'm going to add 4 to both sides. These cancel out. I'm going to bring down a negative 3x is less than 11 plus 4, which is 15. Now I still need to get my x alone. I notice that this is negative 3 times x. And to undo that, I'm going to divide by a negative 3. These cancel, and I'm left with x is. Now here, a little red flag should have gone off in your brain. You just divided by a negative. So you need to flip your inequality symbol. Instead of a less than, it's going to be a greater than. And 15 divided by negative 3 is negative 5. So here's my inequality. I'm going to go ahead and graph this. Here's 0. Here's negative 5. I need to use an open dot because it's a greater than symbol. And I'm going to shade to the right using my smart cut. If you want to use the test, let's test the point like 0. Is 0 greater than negative 5? Yes. The last thing we need to do is check our solution. Just like any equation, we're going to start with the original equation. So I'm going to bring the original inequality, I'm going to bring this over to the right. And I'm going to pick a value of x that is in my shaded area. So any number to the right. Since we have a 0 labeled, let's just use 0. And we're going to see if this is true. So I'm going to substitute in 0 for every x. So 4 times 0 minus 7 times 0 is less than 11. Now let's see if that checks out. Negative 4 plus 0, because 4 times 0 is 0, minus 7 times 0, which is 0. Is that less than 11? Negative 4 plus 0 is negative 4. Is that less than 11? Is negative 4 less than 11? Yes, it works. So our inequality is correct. X is greater than negative 5. Alright, let's do another example. What I want you to do is pause the video, try this example on your own. During this video, I'm going to ask you a lot to pause on your own, and I need you to pause the video and try this on your own. When you press play again, I will show you the solution, but it's really important that you try, because you know how to solve multi-step equations, so you need to try and reach for the multi-step inequalities. Alright, let's go over example number 2. I'm going to draw a line down my inequality sign, and the first thing I'm going to do is look and see, can I simplify anything? This side is already simplified. I'm going to bring down my 47, and I'm also going to bring down my less than or equal to. I notice here that I can distribute. I need to distribute by negative 7. So negative 7 times 7 is negative 49. Negative 7 times 7n is a negative 7n. I'm sorry, negative 49n. Now this side is simplified. There's no distributing and no combining. So I'm going to go ahead and start solving. First, I'm going to undo my minus 49 by adding 49 to both sides. 47 plus 49 gives me 96. Is less than or equal to. These cancel. I'm left with a negative 49. N. I need to get my n alone. So I know that this is negative 49 times n. So to undo that, I'm going to divide by negative 49. 96 divided by negative 49 is going to give me 0.959. Now I noticed right here that I divided by a negative, so I need to flip my sign, and these cancel out, and I'm left with n. Now it's okay that we got a decimal, and we can make sure that decimal is right by checking it at the end. Now if I want to graph this, I'm going to rewrite this so that the n comes first, so that's a little bit easier. And this is, I'm sorry, a negative 1.959. I'm going to go ahead and draw my 0. I know it's going to be here, and I need to ask myself, where would negative 1.9 fall? It falls between the 0 and the 1, and the 1 and the negative 2. I know that negative 1.9 is closer to is in between the negative 1 and the negative 2. I also know that it's closer to negative 2 than negative 1. It's almost at negative 2. So I'm going to put a closed dot at negative 1.9. And I'm going to pick a test point, like negative 3. Let's see if that works. If n was negative 3, is negative 3 less than negative 1.9? Yes. So I want to shade to the left. You could also use your smart cut because we put n in front. So there's my inequality. Well, let's check it. Let's rewrite our original equation. We had 47 is less than or equal to negative 7, and in parentheses 7 plus 7n. Let's pick a number that would fall in our shaded area. Let's pick a number like negative 5. So let's see if that works. Is negative 7 plus 7 times negative 5? Because we said, what if x was negative 5? So now I have 47 is less than or equal to, and let's put that in our calculator. Negative 7, parentheses, 7 plus 7 times negative 5. That gives me 196. Is 47 less than 196? Yes, it is. So my inequality is correct. Let's do a couple more examples. Alright, in example 3, I need to say, okay, are my both sides simplified? So I'm going to draw a line down my equal sign. And I'm looking at my left side, and I notice I have no distributing and no combining terms. On my right side, I have no distributing and no terms combined. So I'm ready to start to solve for the variable. Now, we talked about when you solve for the variable, it'll be a little bit easier for you if you try to get your variables on the left-hand side. So to get these together, I'm going to move my negative 8 over here. So to move my negative 8x, I'm going to add 8x. Notice we're adding the entire 8x, not just 8, 8x. And I'm also going to add 8x over here. Now, why did I add 8x to this negative 7 and not the 2? Well, these are two like terms. They both have x's. So I'm going to bring down my 2. Negative 7x plus 8x gives me a positive 1x. That's going to be less than or equal to 10. And negative 8 plus 8, that cancels out. Alright, now let's start to solve our equation. Our variables on one side, so I'm going to undo my addition and subtraction. I'm going to just subtract 2 from both sides. This cancels out. I'm left with 1x is less than or equal to 10 minus 2, which is 8. Now, I need to ask, is my x alone? It does have this 1 in front of it, but, 1x is the same as an x by itself. So my inequality, or my solution, is x is less than or equal to 8. Go ahead and graph that. Here's 0, here's 8. I need to use a closed dot because we're using it equal to. I'm going to pick a test point. I think that I need to graph to the left this way, but let's just check. A test point is 0 less than or equal to 8. Yes. So I need to graph to the left. Remember, the last thing that we should do is check our answer. So I'm going to go ahead and write out the original equation. 2 minus 7x is less than or equal to 10 minus 8x. Let's assume if x was, and let's pick 0 again. Well, 2 minus 7 times 0 is less than or equal to 10 minus 8 times 0. 2 minus 7 times 0 is just 2 plus 0. 10 minus 8 times 0 is just, it gives me a plus 0. 2 plus 0 is 2. 10 plus 0 is 10. Is 2 less than or equal to 10? Yes. So my inequality is correct, that x is less than or equal to 8. Alright, for this next example, I want you to go ahead and pause the video, try on your own. Remember to simplify both sides before you move any variables around. Alright, so the first thing I want to do is draw a line on my equal sign. So I have negative 3 plus 6 equals negative 1x plus 4 minus 4x. Alright, now, this is not an inequality sign. This is an equal sign. So I want you to notice that as we go forward. First thing we should do is say, right, is there anything to simplify on the left? No, no distributing the like terms. On the right, yes, I notice I have some like terms. I have a negative 1 and a negative 4. So I bring down my negative 3x plus 6. My equal sign, negative 1 plus negative 4 gives me a negative 5x plus 4. Both sides are now simplified. I'm going to go ahead and solve for x. I'm going to bring my 5x over, combine my x's on both sides. Negative 3 plus 5x gives me positive 2x. Bring down my plus 6. This cancels and I'm left with 4. I know that I need to solve for x, so I'm going to get rid of my plus 6 first. So I have that 2x is equal to 4 minus 6 is negative 2. I'm going to go ahead and divide both sides by 2, and I get x is equal to negative 1. Now, this is not an inequality, so we can't draft it. If you want to, you can put here that x is 1, but it's not necessary because this is not an inequality. We don't need to graph it. I threw this in here because I want you to be aware that you need to watch the sign. Watch if it's an equal. Watch if it's an inequality. You can't just make up an inequality. You need to either have an inequality to begin with or have an equal sign to begin with. Let's just go ahead and check that this is correct. I'm going to have negative 3x plus 6 equals negative 1x plus 4 minus 4x. Now, x is negative 1. We can't pick any other number. It has to be negative 1. Let's see if it works. So 3 times negative 1 plus 6 equals 1 times negative 1 plus 4 minus 4 times negative 1. So negative 3 times negative 1 is positive 3. Negative 1 times negative 1 is negative 1 plus 4. Negative 4 times a negative 1 is a positive 4. Alright, let's see. 3 plus 6 is 9. Negative 1 plus 4 gives me 8. Uh-oh. I must have done something wrong. This is why we check our solutions. Let's just go back through our check and see if we made a mistake. Okay. This was a negative 1 times, oh, right here. I forgot to bring the negative down here. Negative 1 times negative 1 gives me a positive 1. So let's reevaluate this. 1 plus 4 is 9. So my check works. It's really important that you check your solution because just like right now, we could have made a mistake. Alright, let's go ahead and do example number 5. Draw a line on my equal sign. Now, I want you to go ahead, pause the video and try this one. This one's a little bit tricky. So when you get stuck, I want you to unpause and see the solution. So, I know I need to simplify both sides. I see on the left-hand side I need to use some distributing. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to distribute my negative 2. Negative 2 times 3n gives me a negative 6n. Negative 2 times a positive 8 gives me a negative 16. I have my inequality sign, and I'm going to bring down my negative 6n minus 22. Now I notice I have no terms to combine, no more distributing. No terms to combine, no more distributing. So what I need to do is get my variables together. Now we talked about it'll be easiest if we get them to the left side. I'm going to bring this 6n to the other side. And notice I'm adding the 6n to the other term that has an n. These cancel out. I'm going to bring down my negative 22. Bring down my inequality sign. Negative 6n plus n is 0n. I'm going to bring down my negative 16. Now, no matter what number we put in for n, 0 times any number is 0. So this really is just 0 minus 16 is greater than negative 22. 0 minus 16 is negative 16. Now, this is interesting. We ended up with no variables on either side. When we get to this point, we need to read the inequality and see, is it true? Is negative 16 greater than negative 22? Now this one's a little bit hard, but I want you to imagine a number line. Here's 0. Here's negative 16. Here's negative 22. Which is bigger? Is negative 16 greater than negative 22? This is actually true. Now, what's interesting about this is this is a true statement. This statement is true. If it's a true statement, the solution is going to be all real numbers. And this is different than when we saw an equation, because sometimes when we saw an equation, if we got something like negative 16 equals negative 22, that was false, and the answer was no solution. But notice there's an inequality symbol in between these. Because of that, this is a true solution. Negative 16 is greater than negative 22. That is a true solution. To graph that, that means that any number will work. Because of that, we are going to shade the entire line. Our solution is the entire number line. Any number on the number line will work. And just to prove that to you, let's use it in our check. I'm going to rewrite my equation. Negative 2 times 3n plus 8 is greater than negative 6n minus 22. Alright, and I'm going to pick a random number. I'm just going to pick a number like n is 4. I just picked the randomest number, because if it's any number, we should be able to pick any number. And I'm going to plug 4 in. Negative 2, parentheses, 3 times 4, plus 8. Is that greater than negative 6 times 4 minus 22? So let's see. Well, I'm going to bring down my negative 22. 3 times 4 is 12. And look to the other side. Negative 6 times 4 is a negative 24. Let's keep going. Negative 2 times 12 plus 8, which is 20, is greater than negative 24 minus 22. Let's just bring that down. And now let's simplify both sides. Negative 2 times 20 is negative 40. And negative 24 minus 22 is a negative 46. So, let's see if this is true. Is negative 40 greater than negative 46? Yes, this is a true statement. So our solution is all real numbers. Let's do another example that's a little bit interesting. Go ahead and try this example on your own, and then when you're ready, press play and I'll show you the solution. Okay, so I'm looking at my left side. I notice that I have no distributing, no like terms. I'm going to leave that one alone. I'm just going to bring it down. Bring down my inequality symbol. Over here, I notice I have to do some distributing. So 2 times 2 is 4. 2 times x is 2x. I'm going to go ahead and solve this. I need to get my x's together, so I'm going to subtract 2x from both sides, trying to bring my inequality to the left-hand side. 2 minus 2x is 0x. I'm going to bring down my 4, and these cancel. Now, we just talked about this, but 0 times any number is 0. So this is really just a 0. So 0 minus 3 is greater than 4. 0 minus 3 is negative 3. Alright, at this point I need to ask myself, is this true? Is negative 3 greater than 4? Is negative 3 greater than 4? Let's look on a number line. Here's 0, here's negative 3, here's positive 4. Is negative 3 greater or bigger than 4? No. This is false. Because our solution is false, the answer to this is no solution. So it's really important that you are watching a couple of things. In our last example, we ended up with numbers on both sides that were different, but it was true. This example, we have numbers on both sides that are different, but it's false. So you need to read the inequality. Negative 3 is greater than 4, false. No solution. One last thing about this is that we cannot graph this, so you just have to write no solution. Alright, last problem. What I want you to do is try this one on your own. It's a combination of a lot of different things. When you're ready, press play and I'll show you the solution. Alright, I notice on the left-hand side I need to distribute. I'm going to do that first. Negative 2 times 1 is negative 2. Negative 2 times 7n is a positive 14n. Bring down my inequality sign. Now right here I have a negative and then a parenthesis. Remember there's an imaginary 1 right there. So I'm going to distribute a negative 1. Negative 1 times 5 is negative 5n. Negative 1 times 2 is minus 2. When I say, okay, is this side simplified? Yes. Is this side simplified? No. I notice that I can combine the negative 5m and the 5. So I'm going to bring down my negative 2 plus 14n is less than or equal to. I'm going to combine those and get 0n minus 2. 0 times any number is just 0, so really I have negative 2 plus 14n is less than or equal to negative 2. Now, are both my sides simplified? Yes, yes. My next step is to get my variable by itself on one side. Right, so to undo my plus negative 2, I'm going to add 2 to both sides. Oops. Board's getting a little crazy. Let's erase that. Alright, so I'm going to add 2 to both sides. These cancel out. I'm going to bring down my 14n. I have a less than or equal to. Negative 2 plus 2 is 0. Now, I still need to get n by itself. So, how do I get n by itself? Well, I know that between 14 and m is multiplication. So to undo that, I'm going to divide by 14. Now notice, I'm dividing by a positive. So I do not need to flip my sign. I'm going to bring down my n, bring down my less than, and 0 divided by 14 is 0. So I think my solution is that n is less than or equal to 0. I'm going to go ahead and graph this. I need to use a closed dot, the less than or equal to, and I'm going to shade to the left using my Smart Cut. Now let's pick a point that we could test this with. I'm going to rewrite my original equation for my check. negative 2, 1 minus 7m less than or equal to negative, parentheses, 5n plus 2 plus 5n. Now let's think of a number that's in this shaded area. Let's pick maybe like negative 1. Let's see if that works. Negative 2, parentheses, 1 minus 7 times negative 1 is less than or equal to negative 5 times negative 1 plus 2 plus 5 times negative 1. Alright, let's see what we get. 1 minus 7 times negative 1. Well, let's put that into our calculator. We're going to have 1 minus, 7, parentheses, negative 1. That gives us a positive 8 is less than or equal to, I'm going to keep my negative here, and I'm going to simplify what's inside of these parentheses. 5 times negative 1 is negative 5, plus 2 is negative 3, and I'm going to also simplify this. 5 times negative 1 is a negative 5. 2 times 8 is negative 16, is less than or equal to, let's just put this whole thing in our calculator. Remember, it's like a negative 1. So negative 1 times negative 3 is 3, and 3 plus negative 5 is negative 2. Alright, is this true? Is negative 16 less than negative 2? Yes, that is a true statement. So our inequality is m is less than or equal to 0, and here's our graph. Alright, those are all your examples. Go ahead and write down any questions you have and come prepared to practice.